This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching the Mr. Media interview with Monty Python film editor Julian Doyle, author of the new book, The Life of Brian Jesus. um, Julian, tell folks a little bit how you became part of the Python universe.
Um, well, they had just left the TV and were trying to start things on their own. And they got in a bit of trouble and they came to my company and we sorted it out for them on a little project that they had. We then made two films for them, short films, commercial things. And then they said, would you like to do Holy Grail, and run that because everything else has run so well. And so we took on this task of doing this film for, I think we only managed to raise $165,000 pounds, which would be $200,000, to make an epic in Scotland period piece. And of course, in those circumstances, we had to drop horses and things like that. No way we could deal with horses with that budget. And so we set off. I had all schemes on how you could actually make a film for that, and I actually designed a camera to go up on the mountains and shoot. So it was quite an adventure. I mean, it wasn't a pleasant adventure, struggling with that amount of money, but I ended up shooting quite a bit in my back garden and in my sitting room and strange things like that to deal with. I mean, the opening of the film I shot over Hampstead Heath. I mean, we're up in Scotland, we didn't have the opening of the film. The opening I shot over Hampstead Heath. Me and my brother went over and shot the castle. They look at a castle when you see a castle. I mean, my brother went out and shot that and things like that. I mean, we just bust our way through, got through it, and then set off a whole chain of films because it was successful.
Now, I need you to clarify for me. You're described as the film editor, but it sounds like, I mean, when I think of a film editor, I think of someone who sits at nowadays the computer, but who would sit at the old computer and crank and do that. But it sounds like you did a whole lot more than just
Yeah,
edit film.
I'm a bit of a strange character in that I can do all the jobs. So, which was perfect for Holy Grail. I could go out. I was shooting bits like Tim's explosions while they're doing the constitutional peasants, and I mean I shot lit the Black Knight scene where the arms and legs come off. I shot that. We hadn't got that, and we shot that back in London. So I'm able to do those things. And so on Time Bandits or Brazil, I was shooting the effects. I can do tricks in the camera. Most of the stuff, the tricks in Time Bandits and Brazil were done in the camera. We didn't have CGI then. And so I was doing the tricks in the camera, which work out much cheaper in those days. We could do quite complicated things, like Time Bandits only cost $4 million, and it looks like a real extravaganza. But like the giant, I shot just walking around on my haunches trying to get him to look big. So it's doing sort of lots of things in the camera, so which holds the budget right down. It keeps the budget right down in that I can go out and shoot. So on Brazil, for instance, I was coming in the morning at 6:30, editing till 8:30, going on the floor and shooting, and then at 6:30 in the evening going back into the cutting rooms. And so it was like a year of my life just doing that. It was a long haul, Brazil, because it was a very complicated film.
Oh, yeah.
But we did it for something like $14 million, and you'd think it was some extraordinary, much more expensive. So I'm a bit of a strange character, which is helpful.
Well, I have to tell you, you mentioned the Black Knight scene again, and I was just thinking about that, and that of course. People, if you've seen the movies, he gets his arms cut off, his leg cut off. I just remembered where I saw it. I have to share this with you. I saw this at the North Brunswick Drive-In Theater in my hometown in New Jersey, and I will always remember. It was like, oh my God, he cut his arm off. He cut his other arm off, and I'm just, your first reaction is absolute shock. And then it's just fall down. I mean, I was just laughing. It was in the car, for God's sakes, with my buddies. I was just laughing so hard. I couldn't believe this. And as someone at the time who thought, and I went on to study filmmaking, but who thought about maybe, pursuing that, the idea that you could actually make a movie and cut someone's arms and legs off, and they would still be okay when the filming was over, just light bulb time. The light bulb went on over the head. It was incredible. So
The arms were easy to cut off. The leg was a problem. We had to get a one-legged man in to cut, so he could jump about on one leg, and we could cut the other one off. I mean, it actually created a problem because we dug the one-legged man into the ground to do the last line where he's riding away and said, "Come back and I'll bite your legs off."
right.
We buried his good leg and had his stump, so his stump could be on the top, you see. But unfortunately, we left him in a long time, and when we pulled him out of the hole, his other leg, his good leg, didn't work very well.
Oh, no.
And we was really sad because he couldn't stand up on it because he'd gone to sleep totally. We felt very bad about this guy. But, and then John puts the voiceover, obviously,
Oh my God.
to get the ending.
But he was okay, I assume. We have to finish
Yeah,
that, right?
he
was okay.
recovered. We massaged his leg for a while to get the blood flowing back into it.
Oh God, the things you never think about. So you worked on all these films. I have to ask you, and I hope no offense will be taken, but I remember seeing Jabberwocky when it opened. I remember the theater. These films make this impression on you. It was and I hate to say it, but it was a little dollar theater, and I remember going in and you have this expectation, and I'm going to talk to you about expectations in Python films in a minute, but you have this expectation of it's sort of a Python film. It's not quite a full Python film, but and here's where I say no offense. What the hell was that about? I still don't understand what I was looking at. I came out of there and my brain was muddled. I don't know what was going on in that film.
Well, it was Terry Gilliam. Terry Gilliam, everybody went, and unfortunately he put pythons in the film, so they do appear in the film, like Mike Palin's in there and John, I don't know if John's in it, Terry Jones in there at the beginning. But so people had an expectation of comedy. That is a problem because it's not a comedy.
It's funny.
More a sort of funnyish adventure, which people found out. I mean, when we went with Time Bandits to the States, people went to that expecting something for children, an adventure with children, and it worked a treat. Whereas when it was like a Jabberwocky came out like a spin-off of Python, and of course everybody went and said, well, it's not funny, it's not like that. But that's not where Terry Gilliam's at. Terry Gilliam is at great visuals. I'll tell you who did spot what it was about. Ridley Scott kept asking us, how did you do this and that and the other? Stanley Kubrick was saying, can I get your cameraman to do Barry Lyndon? Because he spotted that the visuals were terrific. Ridley then got Charles Node, our costume designer, to go and do Blade Runner because he spotted that the costumes were amazing. So it's Terry Gilliam's amazing visuals and his control of the thing was there, but if you go there expecting a comedy, you're just going to be disappointed.
Oh, thank God.
Really, yeah.
All these years, I thought it was just me. It was hard enough finding anyone else who had actually even seen the film. But when I tried to explain, and I just thought it was one of those moments in life where I just didn't get it. But okay, good.
No, it's purely that it was more a Terry Gilliam thing in the line of Time Bandits or Brazil or that type of thing, which is just visual extravaganza. And the people who like Brazil, for instance, they're very much art students, people who are visually trained. They love the excitement, of the visuals. So that's where he's. And it's a different world.
How complicated? Speaking of Brazil, I wasn't actually going to ask you this, but how complicated was that film to edit and put together piece by piece? It would seem like, wow, very challenging.
It is a problem. The problem with it, and this is the problem with Terry Gilliam generally, his films, is that it's episodic. Time Bandits was episodic. Brazil is less episodic, but we know where it's going. Baron Munchausen is episodic. You want Terry to be doing a straight, simple story and then put his visuals in it. But if he takes episodic, they go episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. So I spent the whole of Time Bandits trying to blend these episodes together. And the same with Brazil. It's trying to say, Terry's going, save that, it's a terrific visual. And I'm going, it doesn't tell the story. It doesn't tell the story. Let's get on with the story. Let's keep the story going. So my battles with Terry were always about keeping the story and keeping it shorter. I mean, Terry asked me to go to see a viewing of something and to see what I make of it, during the cutting. And I couldn't go, so I sent my daughter and I said, tell Terry it's a great movie, but it's too long. So
No matter
without
what it is.
yeah. So Marguerite, my daughter, went to him and said, "It's a great movie, but Julian says it's too long." So he said, "Yeah, oh, I knew he'd say that." So I've spent all my time trying to get it down and keep to the storyline, and so that's the problem with Terry Gilliam stuff is you have to sometimes sacrifice some great visual shot that he might have spent all day shooting, and then you cut it out. And you say, "You can't cut that out. That's a terrific shot," and I'm going, yeah, it doesn't tell the story. So we used to have that. I mean, this is the difference between, sort of different people, how they perceive it and where they're coming from. And Terry, I mean, he revolutionized the visuals. The problem now is anybody can do it with a CGI. You just go on a computer and you can create all these amazing things that we were doing in the camera,
Well, it seems like the consistent criticism of Terry, who is brilliant and has done some amazing things. I love Time Bandits. My wife thinks that Brazil is the greatest movie ever made. But he does seem to lack, historically, a certain amount of discipline. And when he doesn't have someone like yourself, perhaps, or someone else kind of acting as a bit of a governor on his impulses, it goes off the rails.
It might be the case. I mean, he just needs, if there are complicated stories, or he needs a simple story. It was like when Ridley did Alien. There's a nice simple thing. A horrible monster out there, got to kill it, or it's going to kill you. It's nice and simple. And then Ridley could develop all this great visuals around it and all this great stuff around Alien, and he created something totally new from that. But it started from a nice simple story. And I think Terry should be tackling a simpler story where it would give him a chance to show his visuals while we're still captured by the story, because it's such a strong story. But the episodic thing, like you have Baron Munchausen, you have the Moon episode and you have this episode, and the film stops and restarts all the time. And they're visually terrific, but they're really difficult to blend into a single film. So you might be right.
Well, Julian, let me. I just want to peer in here. What's going on in Life of Brian behind you? I can't quite follow the story at the moment.
The director is naked and is jumping out of a hole as a hermit, and he's trying to direct the film as a naked man. Going back to the film and the book. I was telling you about how accurate it is, and one of the things that the film has, there's lots of messiahs, which there were 19 people called Jesus functioning around that time, at the same time as our Jesus, who had messianic tendencies, so it had that in it. This scene is I know you're the Messiah. I should know. I've followed a few. So we've got that in it. We've got the big thing that I think that's in the film that isn't in any other film is the sectarian infighting. The sectarian infighting was absolutely crucial to understanding Israel at that time, because the Romans actually got into Israel. General Pompey was invited by two royal brothers who were fighting each other, one representing the Sadducees and the other representing the Pharisees, and they both tried to bribe Pompey to come in and fight on their side. Pompey came in and fought for the Roman side and just took over Israel. And that, in fact, is how they got in. And even when the rebellion happened and the Romans were at the wall of Jerusalem, Josephus still writes about how there was infighting going on between the different groups inside Jerusalem at the time of the siege. Before they're all about to die, they're still fighting each other. So that sectarian infighting, which is shown in Brian, is a crucial thing.